Ladies and gentlemen, I'm KageKaze back again, taking a look at the Diablo 3 PTR for 105. There's been a couple pushes to the PTR since I last looked at it, and I wanted to kind of go over a few of the changes, and I'm going to look over it in a more Demon Hunter-centric view. But for now, I want to take a look at some of the changes that are going to affect everybody. First and foremost, one change that went in the last push is that the drop rate on legendary items is doubled. Yes, more legendaries for everyone. Now keep in mind that legendaries are still fairly rare. Someone like myself still doesn't see them very often. Now there is some concern about this, that it could destabilize the marketplace a bit, devalue legendaries and other items in general. Now that's a valid concern. To be honest, I'm not sure how I feel on that change one way or the other. On one hand, as a person who rarely gets legendaries, it's nice to know that I might actually have a chance of seeing them. And as a matter of fact, on the PTR, I did find some. The unfortunate part is they kind of wiped our characters on this last push. So yeah, that kind of sucks for me, doesn't it? Alright, so what else did they change? A few things here and there. One thing that I have to admit that I like is that Lacuni or Lacuni have a cooldown on their combo attack, and that was something that really hurt me hard. Now, with this latest push, there have been a few other changes to legendaries. Well, actually one change, but it's actually a fairly decent change. Affixes on items roll to their level based on the level the monster killed rather than the item level. This was true in the last push and indeed the PTR in general, but this change has now been applied to the random affixes on legendary items, which means if you're farming for legendaries with monster power, those random affixes will have higher properties on them because they're always going to be eye level 63. Another interesting change from the patch notes, one that I think is actually a very good change, actually, and one that might seem very unimpressive on paper, but can make a big difference here. The Health Globe healing bonus here now will apply to potions. I think that is a massive boon because, quite honestly, as a barbarian player, especially, I have noticed that my health pool far outstrips the ability of my healing potion to cure me. And now, I can actually get Health Globe builds to help me with that. Now, people might have already used Health Globe builds in the past. As a matter of fact, there are some skills as a barbarian that help you get Health Globes, and then therefore you could use skills to increase their power. But now, I can actually have my potion heal me and be useful. Now, the other general change is kind of minor, kind of neat, kind of not really needed, but hey, it's here. If you go into your stash, you may not notice any changes here at first, but there is a patch note that says that you can now change the icon for each tab in your shared stash. In order to do this, you just right-click on the icon, and it'll show you a whole bunch of icons here that you can choose. So you can pick to make the art reflect what you want in this tab. It's kind of a personal notification. No one else is going to see it. Really not a big deal, but honestly, if you want to just kind of have a little extra art, something to remind you what each tab is for, perhaps, here you have it. I mean, you can basically set it up. They've included icons for each character type, both male and female, the followers, different bags if you just want to make the bag look different. Just select what you want, hit accept, and there it is. So for me here, my first tab has always been dedicated to gems. I could set that. My second has been for crafting, so I could choose this for disenchanting or maybe for my blacksmith. I'm just going to go ahead and accept that because having an eyeball on my tab somehow feels weird. I don't know. But here, I could just set, say, my last one for a hammer for my auction house items, because this tends to be my alt set or magic find set. And there you go. I now have different icons, different art looking at me, and it pretties it up a bit, eh? It's there. So I'm looking at Demon Hunters in general, and the reason why is because for the last two patches, Demon Hunters, or the last two pushes, I should say, because this is all under the moniker of patch 105. They're just different builds of said patch. So looking at the Demon Hunter, this last one didn't really do a lot except for increase the power of sentries, but it was increased by quite a bit, and honestly, that was enough to get me fairly excited, as I've always wanted to kind of make a sentry build. Now, if you may remember from the original patch notes, I stated that you can have 2 sentries up at one time at a base level, 3 with custom engineering. That is what really got me interested in looking at the Demon Hunter here. The Demon Hunter in general I've already liked, but that change is one that definitely I think the changes they made in the last 2 pushes have really increased the abilities that you have and the tactics that you can employ as a Demon Hunter, and you're no longer relegated to having to be a glass cannon if you don't want to be. So I've got a few skills on my bar here just to kind of look at some of the changes that have occurred. And one of the big ones here that I really like is the change to Bola Shot that I'm putting out here. It's not a huge change. The damage itself hasn't been changed, but the radius has. In fact, this rune increases the explosion to 20 yards. As a default, if you want to look at Bola Shot, it has 14 yards on the explosion. I believe this is increased from 7. So you're looking at twice the range now, making it very effective for taking out large groups. It was always effective in the past, but now it's a lot easier to hit the targets you want to hit, especially with the delay. Because you may not always hit the right targets if they start moving, like such there. He moved in and actually helped me a bit because I hit all the zombies. So I do really like that change. Now, another change here is they made a change to Evasive Fire. This rune in particular has been changed to Hardened. Alright, so this change to Evasive Fire gives us Hardened instead of Shrapnel. Shrapnel used to do AoE damage, and now instead of doing AoE, this is a more defensive ability. You basically remove the Backflip from Evasive Fire's base mechanic, and instead you gain armor increased by 25% for 3 seconds. This has actually been nerfed by half. It used to be 50%, it's now just 25%. So this makes this... what I like about it is, I like Evasive Fire in general as a skill, just to use it. And what I like about it is now I can have it on my bar, and if I don't want to backflip, I can just use this, and instead of backflipping, I just get more armor. I've also been thinking of how this can be used tactfully and in different builds. In fact, I'm going to go in later here and kind of talk about some builds I've been thinking about. Unfortunately, my Demon Hunter here, only being level 49, I'm not able to put forth all the builds that I would like to try. I kind of wish I was 60, wish I had gotten a little more time into it before the PTR. Well, we, can't change time, but I want to still look at some things, and maybe I could get some people thinking on different builds they might want to try using this and other runes. So a major change here to the Demon Hunter mechanic comes in the form of your companions. As you can see here, I have my Boar companion out. The Boar is a tanking pet now. The Boar gains life regeneration, gives me life regeneration as well, and increases all resistances for both of us by 15%. So very much a tanking type. So not only can the pet tank though, but because it's increasing my resistances and giving me health regeneration, I can actually tank. Again, now you can see that you don't have to be a glass cannon anymore. You can go through and make different builds. I mean, I'm using Evasive Fire to give myself a little more defense. I've got the Boar giving me a little more defense, and you can see here I'm taking a few hits. Granted, this is only Act 1, and this is only in Nightmare, but I do have it on Monster Power 10 right now. So it's not like the enemies are major pushovers. Do have quite a bit more health, as you can see. But alternatively, if I didn't want to use the Boar, I have 2 other pets to choose from. Unfortunately, one of them I cannot show off. I could go from the Boar, and I could go into Spider Companion here. And the Spider, I'll go ahead and turn him on. I won't be able to use him right away. The Spider is a less tanking version of the Boar. He does not give me the additional health, does not give me resistances, and it cannot also take as much punishment. The Spider is not as hardy as the Boar, but what the Spider can do is do an attack that slows the enemy, and it also has a conal attack, so it hits a fairly decent range around it. So you can use this as more of a utility pet, is what it feels like now. It's somewhere in between the boar and the wolf. Now the wolf is the one I can't show off. That is the one get a bit later here. I'll just kind of pull up the companion tab here. Well, once it's off cooldown. I'll just kill a few guys here while we're waiting for that. Alright, let me oops, pull them up. As you can see here too, you actually get a little icon now with a health bar for your pets, since they've been turned into actual proper pets, much like zombie dogs or the gargantuan. There we go. So I resummon him. So the wolf is your DPS pet. I'll just go ahead and talk about it now. The wolf does a bit more damage, and he is less tanky than even the spider, so he cannot take a lot of punishment. The wolf has been described as kind of like empowers to the zombie dog. So if you think of the wolf as a zombie dog, then the spider is a step above that as far as being able to take damage, and the boar yet another step above that. Change to the bandolier rune for Spike Trap that I really enjoy is that it no longer makes it so you can use 6 traps, because you can always use 3. But it used to be bandolier made it so I can put down 6 traps at one time. Well, I was never really very impressed by that, because, you know, for one, you're really most often not putting down 6 traps at one time, especially if you have to stay mobile. You're usually only getting 3 down, unless you're planning well in advance, and even then you're using up quite a bit of hatred to put down all these traps. So now we have Echoing Blast, and I think this really opens up a little bit of strategy. Being able to maneuver the enemy using this rune is quite nice. It basically allows you to put a trap down that will blow up 3 times in total before it goes away. So I can kind of grab their attention, maybe. Hey guys, come over here. You see, there it is. It's blowing up, blew up twice, 3 times. So you can leave a little area of damage on the ground, and since each one does 275% weapon damage, it's adding up to over 600-700% weapon damage. Very nice, especially since you can just kind of put it there in a group, let it blow up multiple times. Enemies that tend to stand still, or bosses which are fairly big and can't get out of them, will be highly affected by it. So I'm going to look at the passives real quick. Now, I mentioned that Bandolier went away. And it did. It went away on Spike Trap. But it has returned in the form of Custom Engineering. Custom Engineering will now allow you to use 6 traps. The beautiful thing is that you can use it with any rune now. So it's not just a rune by itself. It's not you can only get the base effect with 6. I could take Bandolier, which allows me to take 6, and I could actually go into Spike Trap and pick up, say, Scatter, which allows you to put 3 traps down simultaneously. Now, we can put on Custom Engineering here, since I'm going to use that anyway. Take off Archery, put on Custom Engineering. We'll wait for that to come up, and we'll see if that changes to all 6. Because that can, with the zombie dogs, you're able to put all 4 dogs out when you're using the rune that gives you an additional dog. So with Spike Trap, doesn't look like it changes here, but it could just be because I can't learn it just yet. But when you think about it, even that is not a bad idea and preferable to the way it used to be. Because I can use it once, put down 3, and then I can use it again, put down another set of 3. I think that really opens the door for different ways of using it. So you can use all of these runes in different ways. So I could actually use Echoing Blast with 6. I could put out a huge field of 6 Echoing Blast Spike Traps and just walk the enemy right through it and do a ton of damage. Lots of control, customizability here. The other change, of course, is the fact that I can have 3 turrets instead of just 2. And 2 alone is a very nice change as far as turrets is concerned. Another change is, since I was talking about survivability and tanking, Perfectionist not only reduces cost of your disciplines by 10%, but your life, armor, and all resistances by 10%. So there you go. I've got 10% resistances from Perfectionist. I can have 15% from my Boar. I can have 25% additional armor from Evasive Fire. There's quite a bit I could do there. As a matter of fact, if I take that Perfectionist and I can put on my numbing traps, which has been changed to also include grenades and sentry fire. Alright, one other quick change before I move on is the change to Thrill of the Hunt is now every 7 seconds instead of 10 seconds. And instead of just using the next arrow attack, it uses any hatred spender. Any hatred spender. So you put down an ability and maybe it's got a huge burst AoE. You can use Thrill of the Hunt and it will immobilize those targets for 2 seconds. So Thrill of the Hunt is actually quite useful. It can hit more than one enemy now. And again, we're looking at tactics here, things that you can do to control the enemy. The Demon Hunters really have a lot more flow now to what they can perform. What I've done is I've kind of put together a small build here. I'm going to try and use my Sentry. What I'm going to do is use my Spitfires. Fortunately, I don't have ballistics, but we're going to take a look at it, see how they perform, because in this build, Sentries now do 175% weapon damage. They last for 30 seconds. With custom engineering, I can have 3 up at one time. Now, one other change I didn't go over before I start using my Sentries is Strafe. I'm looking at Ember Strafe here. That leaves a trail in my wake that causes fire damage. And the best part is, if you ever compared Strafe to Whirlwind on a Barbarian, well, you're doubly true now, because you can now use Strafe to go through enemies. You are no longer blocked by enemies while using that ability, so it is very much a ranged Whirlwind now, if it wasn't before. So I'm going to go in and just kind of plop down some of these sentries, and I've got a fairly defensive build using my numbing traps. Let's just go ahead and try and take a look at how much damage these can do. Now keep in mind they do have kind of a cooldown on them now. I can't just pop them all down at once.
Need more time.
There we go. I now have 3 sentry guns up. Fantastic. I think these are very nice changes, and I really think that Demon Hunters are in for a pleasant surprise. For those of you who aren't paying in the PTR, I think you're going to see that there's quite a bit more options available. Alright, now I've changed up my build a little bit more here to be even more tanky. I've got Brooding to give me more life. I've got Numbing Traps to reduce damage by 20%. I've got Perfectionist for some resistances. Same with my Boar Companion. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do something that I had thought about while looking at some of these changes. I was actually talking with 2 friends, Archer of 0 and 10 Ton Blue. We were all having a conversation about the changes to Demon Hunter. And we started talking about Evasive Fire and Hardened, and how useful it might be. And we were kind of different minds. I thought it was a little more useful because I mentioned, as I had argued before, that sometimes I really don't want that backflip mechanic, but I do want to just have Evasive Fire. Of course, Evasive Fire is not the best offense ability. You have other abilities that can do more damage. But now with this defense capabilities that it has, I can combine it with all these other defensive abilities I'm using, and I thought, what if I started combining that with other abilities that are useful in close? Now, unfortunately, I don't have the ability that I would really like to test this with, and I'd like to see if maybe some Demon Hunters think this might be viable, and see how it could work. But I'd like to see Shuriken Cloud combined with this, as it has not a lot of damage there, but it lasts for a while. It lets you get up close. But what I'm going to use is my Fan of Knives. For when I take damage, it's going to do damage to everything around me. And I'm basically going to do as much area of effect damage using my Chain of Torment here. I'm going to go in, cause this damage to occur. There we go. I'm just going to put a chain between them. Of course. Come on down. I've got 2 chains. Putting down fire. I'm not playing this as effectively as I could. I fully recognize that, as I've basically just come up with this build, so I don't have full playthrough experience with it. So let's put that down. Strafe on through. Just let the chain do a whole bunch of damage. Keep my fan of knives up. And I think you could make a fairly interesting tanking type of demon hunter. And maybe not so much, it doesn't even have to be so much tanking, but you could make a very close range type demon hunter. As a matter of fact, some of these skills might even be useful to combine into making that mythical, never really seen melee demon hunter. It does quite a bit of damage, that chain. What does it do now? It does 125% weapon damage to every enemy it touches. And since I can have 2, since I don't have custom engineering on, up at a time, that's quite a bit of damage. So I'm going to go ahead and let's play with this a bit and see if I can get a decent amount of monsters to get some decent footage of how this might work.
So be it. Face me. You can repent your crimes.
Well, I have to say, this is an interesting build, but I'm not entirely convinced the damage of the chains is quite there to make it worth it. Now, they have had their range increased to about, say, 45 yards. As you can see here, you can get quite a bit away here from that turret before it loses the chain. And of course, you can always have 3 of them up by switching over to custom engineering. And you can even use them, as I tried a couple times here, just since the chain is a lot longer now, you can just go down a pathway and just let enemies run into it. Rather than getting in the melee mix like I've been trying to test this build out with, you could simply just lead them to you and let them walk along the chain, doing quite a bit of damage. So there's several possibilities there, but I really just wanted to showcase, even though I'm not 60, even though I don't have all the makings of a great build here, I did want to at least look at some of these abilities and kind of show where Demon Hunters are going to be when 105 comes out. Since I know not everyone's playing in the PTR, as a lot of people don't like to play when they're going to just lose their progress anyway, and there are some who might have just been putting off carrying for a while, but I wanted to get this out there and take a look at it. I really think this is going to put Demon Hunters in a very interesting place, a unique position. And it's for level 60 players of Demon Hunters, it might be a rough transition if you want to try and switch over to something that's going to be so drastic from the standard playstyle. After all, if you've built up to be a glass cannon, you're still going to be a glass cannon. The changes that they've made to the difficulty and the changes that they've made to these skills will not save you from your hits if you've built yourself around doing nothing but damage. If you haven't given yourself any resistances or vitality, they're not going to help you as much. But those of you who have built around creating a semi-workable build, or maybe even built tank Demon Hunter builds to see if they would work before, I think you're going to find that there's a lot here for you. The tactics, again, have just really opened up. I'm interested to see what you guys think, and I would really be interested to see what you guys think of the build ideas and where you think Demon Hunters could go beyond the standard builds that we see now. With all these changes in place, there's got to be unique builds that are coming out now. So if anyone wants to share with them, I definitely would like to hear it. You can, of course, put them in the comments here. And, of course, you could always send an email to theshadowpost@gmail.com. Again, that's theshadowpost@gmail.com. Thank you guys for watching. This has been KageKaze. I'll see you guys on the next one.